everyone. And again, this is Douglas Prater, and I'm John Dupuy, and it is July 12th, 2017. And what a time to be alive, considering everything that's going on the planet. And we're sitting here in front of computers that link us to the whole world and talk about these things and these incredible technologies. And God, it's just such a dramatic time to be alive and doing the work. So I thought we would talk about today, just to kind of start off, is healing the heart in meditation. And that's a big one, because I think most of us, at least most people that I have met who have been around for any length of time on the planet, have had their heart broken in some way. And I think that's what innocence means. It means literally from the Latin, before the wound, And I think some of us maybe some of us get into, early childhood and, blah, 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 without any of that stuff happening. Some of us just pick it up in our mother's womb. Our mother's stressed out. She's going through all kinds of stuff. We just come into the world with pain. And maybe some of us have a little more grace period than that, So I don't know, but it seems to be a universal thing. And when we're talking about transformation and spirituality, if you don't have a spirituality that includes the heart center, which, in so many traditions is the seat of wisdom, is the seat of intelligence. It's the point of spiritual practice, is to grow in love and grow in compassion and grow in connection and grow in wisdom. You just have a dissociated mess. And so if you have a spiritual practice where you just get off in the states of, nirvana or dissociative states, which is kind of nice, because obviously you're not suffering when you're dissociated. And that's why we dissociate. That's why we split off from the painful parts of ourselves. You're just going to have something that's not really grounded in wisdom. It's not going to be healing. It's going to eventually just lead to more pathologies that it's dealing with. So every true spiritual or transformational practice has to include the heart. Now, the good thing is that we have found over the last 7 years with iAwake, and even some of the earlier iterations, that this sound technology that we're constantly working with and evolving, at least some of it, is definitely a somatic heart-based practice. Okay. So whereas traditional meditation, especially if you're a 5 on the Enneagram like Doug, and Doug, I don't think you are a dissociated 5. I think you're very, very in touch with your heart.
That's because I've done the work, John.
I know. It's like completely. And we talk about the Enneagram. Doug and I are writing a book about it. We're talking about typologies. It's going to be called the life of practice, or the practice of life, and how to do an integral practice. So we cover all the main bases, and types are a part of it. And Doug's a 5, and so is Ken Wilber, and so a lot of brilliant people. They're great sages. They collect knowledge and all this stuff. But an unhealthy 5 will dissociate. They'll be dead from the neck down. And that runs into all kinds of problems. And of course, for the 5 to get healthy, and all of us, you have to re-own, all the lower chakras and stuff that you've been trying to avoid by living in the abstract world, if you will, the world of the mind. So, but for true healing to happen, we have to deal with the heart. And we all have these tender hearts that are broken, okay? And we want to bring, sun signs in there. The archetype of my birthday, July 3rd, is the crab. And then so we had this real hard shell to protect all the tender stuff inside. And I definitely, in my life, developed that hard shell. And it wasn't until I started this practice that I started melting that shell and allowing the vulnerability to come out and healing that part of myself. And one of the practices that I developed on my own, and later I found it was a well-developed practice whose the essence essentially had been around for at least a couple of thousand years. And it's called centering meditation, or prayer of the heart. And in this meditation, you have your headphones on, you're doing, PMP or Deep Delta or one of the, Deep Recovery, some of the great stuff that we have. And you just focus on the heart, and you take your mind, not just to the muscle pumping blood, but to this spiritual center. And you focus on that. And in the centering prayer, the prayer is, okay, I'm surrendering myself to higher power, and I'm actually not only I'm surrendering, but I'm actually asking for the presence, or I might say to be aware of the presence, because the presence is always there. We just have to kind of wake up and get to that place where we feel it. And then you have a word that when your mind wanders in meditation, as it often does, and it's not a bad thing when your mind wanders, because the practice is coming back to center, coming back to center, coming back to center, but you're focusing on the heart. And when quite frankly, the ego is scared of focusing on the heart. The ego is scared of transpersonal states of consciousness. The ego is scared of non-dual, because if you're not familiar with it, especially if you're not even familiar with the literature on it, all of a sudden the ego starts dissolving, your mind starts shutting up, and in Zen they say body-mind drop, and all that stuff that we constantly identify with, which is, it's real, but it's distracting when we're getting down to essential self. You'll start freaking out. It's like, no, I'm going there, because what happens if I go there and I don't come back? Or what if I go into this existential void of nothingness and blah, all these different kinds of fears, and if body, mind drop, I mean, what else do I have to identify with? Then what am I? Oh, I got it. But the question is, then what am I? Because I'm aware there's something going on here, and that stuff is gone. So you focus on that, and all kinds of really interesting things can happen. The heart can begin to heal. You can get to your deepest self, and you find out, oh my gosh, at the deepest essence, I'm really freaking okay, And there's this loving consciousness and presence, and my little stuff has gone away, and here I am, and I am that. And that is more real than this other stuff that I experience, on a 24-hour basis. This is essential being, and it's really okay, and it's really loving. Oh, and by the way, it was never born, and it doesn't die. It's like, oh, really? And so when you get to that, and that kind of identification comes with that, well, then all kinds of healing can happen, because the essential, no matter how screwed up and awful things look on the surface, at the deepest, most essential level, like you're in a submarine, and you're in a tsunami or something, and all this hurricane, all this stuff is going on. You go about 100 meters down, and it's all pretty calm. And up on the surface can go being crazy. And the depth of the depth is much deeper than the shallowness of the surface waves. So you get down there, and all of a sudden, okay, you identify with everything. You're not born, you're never dying. This is loving, beautiful, incredibly good, and I'm that. And in some traditions, they call it the Great Liberation, because finally you're free of all the fear and the angst of being human, and the mortality and suffering and aging and the things that Buddha talked about, and that we all know. Get down there, and so with eventual kind of stabilization of that realization, we find that we can be more vulnerable. That we can embrace pain, and we can embrace suffering, we can embrace heartbreak, and not only in ourselves but in others. And that is the transformational work that helps us to start being kinder human beings. And we talked about on the podcast, Doug, about dealing with shame, and this personal shame, blah blah blah, and all that stuff is still there. I don't think it ever kind of goes away as long as we're human beings, but it kind of shrinks in its power to make us go crazy, or start us drinking again, or stick a needle in our arms, or jump off a bridge, or whatever, or lose ourselves in this, that, and the other. And it becomes small and never goes away. And it's good that it doesn't go the way, because it reminds us that we are human, and in our suffering, we are not alone. You think you are the only person that hates themselves and feels bad about themselves and is depressed, or living in despair, lost, can't find their way, don't know what their life is about, can't find their path. I mean, we all go through this, and the fact that we can hold on to that, as well as deepen into this deeper place and heal our hearts, is beautiful, and it leads to heart wisdom. Okay, not just head knowledge, and head knowledge is great, but we put that together with the knowing of the compassionate heart and the healing of the heart. Then we have something that's wisdom, and something really to take to the cosmic bank, if you will. So, and it is the gold. It is the essential gold that the the thing that the alchemists were talking about in physical forms, converting the head, lead into gold. Well, that's our lead, our suffering, our pain, our darkness is converted into love and compassion and beauty and hope and faith and knowing and goodness and humor and humility and great authentic joy. So it's very good stuff. So anything you want to follow up on that, Doug?
That's one of the things that really begins to emerge the deeper you go with these heart-centered meditations, is that ability to reach out and connect to others. It changes your relationships, not only to others, but to yourself. And that has been incredible for me, is not just understanding these concepts intellectually, but seeing them come alive in the people that I talk to on a daily basis. These days, my wife and my family and friends before that, being able to empathize with their suffering in a very different way because of the capacity that heart-centered practice has brought to bear. And it's not easy to deal with at first. I think one of the things that's important to remember too is that with very few, this thing is not going to push you further than you let it. You can get into some really deep somatic work, but it's not going to take you anywhere that you don't give it permission to go. Yeah. And that's why just the observation can be so powerful. The more you start to work with these feelings and become sensitized to the subtle energy that's flowing in the opening of the heart as you're doing this practice, just watching it and coming back to it. You don't need to do any kind of fancy practice around that. Watching is enough. Increases your sensitivity to not only yourself, but to everyone, then helps you touch others. It's wonderful.
Awesome, yeah.
I was going to say too, sort of as a side note here, you made me think of this with your comment that we are not alone and you are not alone. And I had a book still sitting on my shelf that I like to look through sometimes. It's a book of portraits that this gentleman, Steve McCurry, went around the world and took of different people in different cultures and different ages and all sorts of things. Just pictures that absolutely touch your heart and move your heart of all kinds of different people. And sometimes I'll sit there and I'll look through this and look at the Aborigines and look at the people over in Tibet and look at the people in Afghanistan and look at the people in Los Angeles. And every time I turn the page, I'm met with a striking image that reminds me that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
So thought I would share that practice as well.
Absolutely. And it's not just the human world too, this whole darn planet that we inhabit is alive, and with creatures with more or less sentience, but yeah, there's just so much, so many beautiful creatures that we, and we have to deal with, and some that are just like scary as hell. I mean, how do you have a compassionate conversation with a shark? Probably not, probably get it out of his way, but with the people that have developed and evolved with human beings for a long time, these mammals and all these, these creatures that surrounded birds and all this stuff, it's there's an opening and a connection there. And it used to be, they say, St. Francis of Assisi, who was a great warrior of the heart and a great spiritual hero of mine, when he would, there was a famous thing where he was preaching to the birds, and the birds all came down and they just sat on him and they listened. And I had that happen, not quite so dramatically, but one time on a vision quest, I had a bird. I was like, I was really going through it. I thought I'm dying here, right? I'm under this tree, and this bird comes up and gets on my knee, and just comes up and gets on my shoulder and just, beep, 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 just sings away. And it was such a beautiful gift. So, so remember that when we're talking about love and compassion, we extend that to, all sentient beings, past, present, to come. Because in big heart, big mind, the mind of God, if you will, time, past, present, future is just a dimension that emerges out of that. It's something that emerges out of the depth. It's not the context. It's a context that emerges. So,
for some people, certainly myself included in this, but I know others for whom it is the case as well, that starting to emerge into that is sometimes easier with animals because we don't have all that human drama. There's no shame of what you're doing in front of your dog or what your dog thinks of you or the bird that's sitting on your shoulder or my cat has seen me through some incredibly difficult times, and it allowed me to open my heart and connect in a different way when I still feared that my human friends would judge or condemn or shame, and I was ashamed of who I was. But animals allow us to start to express that in a safe way, the love that we have discovered deep in meditation, that we feel that we are, without thinking that we've gone off the deep end with weirdness and universal love. And that's a powerful practice as well.
Yeah. I'm reading the comments here, the great comments. Abraham Lincoln said one time, don't tell me about your religion, show me how you treat your dog. Isn't that great? I just love that. It's just so universally, eternally brilliant. So, yeah. And, and it's important too, to have friends or have a counselor, have a coach or something, or just people that you can share your heart with. And for me, that's really, really, really hard. It took me years of work to get to the point where I can talk about, my story and my stuff and my pain. And it took me a long time. And I just thought people would hurt me. I guess, they're that vulnerable. And some people will. Not everybody can be trusted at that level. So you have to be kind of discerning and wise about that. And we had a podcast coming up. It hasn't been released yet, but where Doug tells his story. And really, really very poignant, very, very beautiful, and painful too at the same time. Bob and I were trying to hold it together, not sob during the podcast. But yeah, well, and not only was that, with the thousands of people that are downloading this podcast, and you shared that with everyone. And
it's easy because you and I won't say it's easy, but certainly easier anyway, because you and Bob provide such a warm, supportive space to listen to that I feel comfortable doing it. And, I'm also sitting here in my room where I'm comfortable. I'm not standing up on a stage in front of thousands of people, even if it will reach thousands of people eventually. But it was hard to do. I've kind of hinted at my story and never really told the whole thing before that came up. And I think I mentioned in the teleseminar last week, the courage coming from the Latin root of heart.
Yeah.
And it very much is true in this case too. It's that heart-centered meditation and heart-centered development work that I've done to make the most of to transcend the limits of my innate typology to get through that and start to speak my truth. And since then, I have felt just incredibly freed by the process of doing so. Like this weight has been lifted off, this guilt, this shame that I felt so deeply for so long. It didn't just suddenly disappear, but nonetheless, there's a lifting and an ease. Yeah. And it started to come through in my creative work lately. I was just saying earlier that I've been on an incredible creative streak lately. And of course, part of that can be attributed to, I use stealing flow a lot, but there's a freedom too in getting through some of this fear. You lift it in one space and then you're able to create in others with courage and with passion that's not limited by all these things that were blocking me up before.
Yeah. Yep. And part of the creative process, I mean, that helps the heart to continue to heal. When you're given that outflow of creativity and goodness, that actually is a part of that, and we have to do something with that love and compassion. It's a verb that needs to be acted out in the world. I'm liking the comments here. Nice point, Doug. Yep. My 2 fur balls are definitely there for me. Right on. Or how you treat your children. And then another comment, or house elves. So yeah, absolutely. And Harry Potter knew about the importance of, and it eventually came back and saved his life. The house elf gave his life for him. And by the way, Doug, you want to talk a little bit about the book that you've written?
Yeah, I have a book that I am getting ready to release sometime this year, and I'm still in the editing phase of it. But there's a project that was in my heart for many, many years. I conceived of this idea back before the final movies were released, even between the time book 7 came out and the
we're talking Harry
movies,
Potter here, folks.
Harry Potter. Yeah, Harry
Yeah.
Potter. That there were so many valuable spiritual insights in that series and teaching tools that I thought it would be wonderful to explain spiritual principles, particularly in relation to Buddhism, using Harry Potter as a kind of teaching tool. And, years ago, this is, almost a decade ago now, that I came up with it. And I had more to learn and more work to do, more self-development to do, more study, more practice on my craft and my writing skills. But it finally has come together. I got the first draft done, and it's going through another round of revisions now, but should be released this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're all probably wizards in training, with all the different issues. And, we can go dark side of the forest or the light side of the forest. It's complex. It's complex, but it's a great story. Harry Potter. I remember I think it was on a cruise or something. And I was in the only book in my cabin was like the 4th one or the 3rd one. And I said, this is probably going to be stupid. And I opened the book, I started reading, I just fell right into it. Such a work of genius, along the lines of Tolkien, as far as, creating an alternative universe, but an alternative universe that's infused with wisdom, but not preachy, easy stuff. Mm-hmm. Dark, twisted, very real human stuff, but nevertheless, it shines through. And I think, of course, Harry Potter is definitely a Christ-like archetype. Very human, but at the same time being pushed. And in the end, he's pushed to ultimately giving up his life for others. And
there's, not to give away the plot here, but there's a profound releasing of his attachments too in that decision. He goes to confront, spoiler alert if you've not read or seen the movies, but he walks into the Forbidden Forest to sacrifice himself to confront Lord Voldemort, and before he does that, he has the resurrection stone in his hand. The one thing he has wanted for the whole entire course of the series is to see his parents again, right? And he drops the stone there in the dirt and walks on to his death. He's given it up. He doesn't need it anymore. And then, of course, he dies and goes to the scene with Dumbledore in Nirvana in the white space.
Wow. I got to read that again. Brilliant. Thank you. Well, good. So anyway, that's something to really freaking look forward to. Is your new book coming out about this? And anybody have any questions or comments or anything they want to add, or any questions they have about anything doing with all the stuff that we're talking about?
Yep. If anybody has a question, you can raise your hand or post something here in chat. Just remember that we're going to be putting this up on YouTube when it's all over.
Yeah. So if you want to be anonymous, don't show your face.
Yes.
And don't say your name, and don't give out your social security number or credit card numbers.
Hey, just wanted to say hi to you guys as usual.
Howdy.
Hey, John. Hey, Doug. Everyone else. Still on the right path. 33 days today. So
good for you, brother.
Yeah, getting so much better, and that's because I'm doing things differently, and I'm doing things that are healthy. I'm eating so many fruits and vegetables. I'm exercising. I'm going for walks in the sun, drinking lots of water. I'm able to practice now and play music for longer periods of time. I'm not watching TV. It's like all the things I was doing in the first 2 weeks are not appealing to me anymore. I always had the inner drive, but I wasn't doing anything about it. Like, I know what I'm capable of. I know what I've done in the past, but it's always been at this hindered level, because I always thought these substances were keeping anxiety at bay or helping me to be more powerful in a sense, or not think as much. But what I'm realizing now, even though it's only a short period of time, is I'm more aware, I'm lighter, and all that's become easier. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like in a year. But I still need to take it one day at a time. It's easy to forget, and I've done that numerous times. And listening Doug, to how you talked about your chronically would go back, chronic relapsing in the sense. It's just that ultimately I think it's a choice. It's a decision, and life is based on the decisions we make. So every time something pops up, I can decide not to put something in my body. It's really simple, and I don't want to overcomplicate it. And so yeah, I just wanted to share where I was at.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think you hit on something really important there. First of all, congratulations on 33 days, because that's a really good milestone. It sounds like you're doing all the right things. But you hit on something really important too, with finding an immediate motivation too, because it's nice to, it's a really smart idea to picture ourselves 5, 10, 15 years in the future and think about what kind of life we want to be living. But that picture is often not enough to do it in the moment. So you find things today that I can be grateful to be sober for. And one of the most important things to me was that I found myself so much more able to appreciate music, particularly live music, when I would go sober to a show. I mean, that was an instance where I used to, well, partake quite regularly. And it's amazing how much more enjoyment I get out of it when I go in the right state of mind. And the ability to remember it too is definitely a bonus there.
Definitely. A couple of days ago, Metallica was in Miami, and I'm not like a big Metallica fan, but I love rock of all genres. But my good friend of 15 years is, so he bought me a ticket, and one of the first sober shows in God knows how many years. So that was a wonderful experience. That was great, and it's medicine too for the soul.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That helped keep me going on the right path, what I'm doing too. And I don't know if there's anyone here, listening that's in the early stages of recovery or coming off substance of any kind. But that is really the hardest part, because through it all, I was like, yeah, emotionally I feel all over the place, but that it's the physical part that is so hard, that is just so taxing, and just death feels so much better. Like, if I don't have to feel anything, then fine, that's great. That would be so much better than what I'm going through now. But it passes, and I just hope people will realize that. And then the key after that is to not forget that, because that'll happen over and over again. And
Yeah.
definitely not going there again.
Well, I think that's one of the strengths of the 12-step programs in AA is, like, you go there to remember, because the mind really likes to make us forget. And so there's a remembrance. Oh God, I remember where I came from. I don't want to go back there again. And yeah, it's important. It's important to realize that, and to wake up in the morning and just not feel poisoned and trashed. I mean, God, how cool is that? Hey, a good book that I really love that I used to recommend to my students, I guess I still do, is Clapton's Autobiography, named Clapton. He was a great musician and a great heroin addict and drunk. And it wasn't until, I think, around 90 or 91 that he finally got sober. And, he's continued to evolve musically, and hasn't been like a lot of my heroes when I was growing up all died, very young, 27, something around there. So it's an inspiring story. I mean, if you can kind of get through all the painful using parts and get to the latter part, but it's a great story. He's come through the fire. There's a lot of humility and honesty, and a lot of self-reflection. He also said, I don't think I could have made it without my music. It gave me a spiritual thing to hang on to through the difficult early stages. And for most of it's really hard at the beginning, but it gets easier with time and practice and creating the right habits. It's like they could say kicking the habit, and drugs become habitual. Just what you do, then you have to stop that. You have to create new healthy habits that are life enhancing and joy enhancing and hope enhancing and creativity enhancing, all that stuff to get through it.
Yeah, it's amazing how much difference spending even a few minutes in the sun makes too. Going for walks and all that starts to reset your system in a real powerful way. And getting enough sleep. I used to keep real weird hours and not sleep very much at all. And getting a full night's sleep and spending some time in the sun just made a tremendous impact, coupled with the other practices and having some way to start to rebuild my sense of self-worth. And it enables you to create better too, in a very different way. You know, one of the saddest turns for me was that when I was using, I couldn't play anymore. I got to a point where I couldn't make music. The coordination just wasn't there. The creativity wasn't there, because I had gone past that point where, you know, I thought a little bit might help, and I just never could do that anymore. My neurochemistry wasn't working that way anymore. It was sober or way past it. So I lost music for many years, and the return to it has reminded me how much there is to be grateful for and how much joy there is to feel. Having returned to music after leaving it in the blackness for so long is worth every day, and all the practice and everything. I would never want to give that up again.
Yeah, a lot of, you know, and a lot of like Metallica, and a lot of the people that have still been performing, you know, it's like all our young heroes got old or died young. And of course, there was a lot of, you know, just drug stuff and alcohol stuff built into the rock and roll lifestyle. And if you're a band, you had to act like this. And also in jazz, you know, there was the whole thing of, you know, all the greats seemed to be heroin addicts. And so their followers would say, well, if I do heroin, I can, you know, play like him. And anyway, a lot of death and misdirection. But yeah, but those who've stuck around have learned how to create, you know, from their own souls without the substances. Because yeah, the substances work for a little while. Sure, they work. They're really effective. But then it's you know, it's a bargain with the devil. The lows continually get lower, and the highs until it just becomes just suffering. Hetfield is sober, yeah, exactly. So yeah, any other thanks for checking in. Really appreciate that. Any other questions or comments?
I think, John, that some of those darkest moments are exactly when heart-opening kind of meditations are the most needed and the most powerful. That's also when we least want to do them, because we feel, you know, so much pain and so much regret, and there's so much to be afraid of if you peek inside of there. But that's exactly when you need it the most.
Yeah. Yep, and we need each other too. Because by the way, you can't do it alone. You know. In addiction, and probably with just almost everything, I mean, one of the definitions is you can't kick it alone. You need help, you need support, and of course, it takes, you know, humility to reach out and get the support you need. And we do need each other, you know. And that's been a hard one for me to learn over the years.
I was just thinking, just brainstorming and dreaming as far as the future of this whole movement and recovery and helping people to heal. I've only been engaged once, and my ex-fiance is currently serving 12 years in prison for heroin trafficking. And so that's been difficult to deal with. But I'm grateful that we get to write each other, and she sent me an application to go see her in person, so I'm waiting on approval of that. But here's someone that graduated top of her class in high school, and like I did, and played violin and won awards, and super intelligent, bright person, and drugs just to make you a completely different person. And she never had a record, never been arrested, and then one arrest, and then boom, she's in the system, freedom taken away for her entire 30s. And so I think the system is so messed up, and you know, my tendency was to look at everything in a negative light, and these systems are corrupt, and the banking and da-da-da. But now I'm changing that. I don't not have those beliefs anymore, but I know that I have control over what I can do about my own personal life and what information I can share to either overcome or get around that. But I see there's tons of drug money that's seized and drugs, and so that's assets in some sense. And that'd be cool if that went to help the people that were struggling, that are getting caught, that are dealers or users, and more rehabilitation that are not just based on one method, 112 step. You know, like they're all connected in some sense, very narrow thinking. You know, I never heard of smart recovery in any rehab that I went to. So there's so many different options. And we never meditated. I've been to 6 different distinct rehab facilities, and we never meditated in one of them. One of them had music therapy, which is cool, and we got to look at the lyrics and apply that to what we're going through. But there's just so many options and so much further to go with this.
That's the truth. And yeah, I mean, part of our work is doing exactly that. That's why we have the journey of integral recovery, you know, and it's a new way of looking at things. It allows us, you know, to take everything. And everybody's right about something. All the different treatment methods have a piece of it, you know, but if we can put it all together in a way that, you know, works with a synchronicity and a holism, there's just there's a new energy and a new power that comes out of that. So yeah, so we're working. We're also writing a book together now. It's called The Practice of Life, or The Life of Practice. That's kind of what we think it's going to be called. And it's about all the you know, the practice and this technology and the grittiness and all the things it takes to put together a life, a triumphant life where you really bring your best self forward to get back to the world. And we've been writing about it in terms of people in recovery, but you know, we're all wounded, you know, we're all hurt. We all have our issues, you know, whether it's drugs or whatever or not, it is something. And so we need to, you know, the same kind of work and practice, working the body, working the mind, working the emotions in the shadow, and having a deep contemplative interior spiritual practice also. It just seems to be essential to get to be the kind of human beings that our family and our planet needs us to be right now. And if you're going to achieve greatness, it takes great effort. You know, there's just no way around it. So hopefully, you know, that's what the book is doing. And as the book, you know, evolves and grows and gets written and gets out there, we want to also get online and community presence so we can support each other. Because it's really important to have other people, you know. I mean, if like you're trying to be a great musician and you don't have anybody to play with, you don't have any, you know, anybody to work with, you're just not going to get to the point where you need to be. And of course, you know, you can do so much on the internet now, but pre-internet it would have been almost impossible, you know, to become, you know, how are you going to be a great football player without a team around you or anything? You know, it's just like we need each other, and we need each other, people to hang with people that will encourage and polish us and challenge us to keep pushing ourselves in the direction we need to go in.
One thing I'm wondering about is, what about the people in our lives that we care about and love, or the family, and they have issues, but like my dad is 67, and he's a functional alcoholic and drug user. He's successful in business and
Yep.
people, but he's not going to listen to anything I say, because he sees what I've been. Oh, you're going to tell me, you know, what I need to do, and I'm just interested in how to help people that you can see where they're stuck on their thought patterns and their negative thinking, and not being able to really thrive, and how to help those people in a sense.
Yeah, well, it's a huge question. And of course, if it's a young person, you know, and you're the guardian of the parent, you have a lot more authority, and you can do all kinds of things. And I'm frankly, on saving young people and stuff, I'm all about being ruthless, you know, like, oh, well, they're just choosing to do this. Oh, bullshit. I'm not going to allow them to choose this. I'm going to protect them from themselves until they get to an age where they can do it themselves. But, you know, with older people, I mean, oftentimes, maybe there's nothing you can do, or you have to have an intervention with the whole family. But I mean, the best thing you could do right now is just stay sober, and eventually your dad's going to look at what's going on with you. Yes. And start looking at himself. And maybe in that, I mean, it's powerful, you know, when you've passed something like alcoholism down to your son, and you see your son beginning to make the changes that you know in your deepest heart that you should be making too. That's a hell of a thing, or a heaven of a thing.
That's exactly the advice that I would give as well. The suggestion that I would make is just live through your example, and maybe those people will see it and maybe they won't, but some pretty profound healing can happen as long as you do what you need to do.
Yeah. And definitely, just major right now, just, walking your talk, and, every day you stay sober, every day you stay healthy, every day you work on yourself is a victory, and celebrate it. It's a new chance for life. It's a new chance for hope. It's a new chance for a future that's, not a bloody tragedy. Right. So it's a good path to be on. And, it's a radical, powerful, revolutionary change that takes lots of courage and lots of support and a lot of work. And there's no way you can, it's just, for most of us, it's not easy, but that's okay. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy. So who cares? Easy is way overrated, when it comes to having great results and a life that matters in a deep way. So,
yeah.
Well, anything else? Oh, go ahead, Doug.
Oh, I was just going to read through comments here. Looks like we have a couple of things. Stephanie asks if we have a guided heart opening meditation among our tracks.
Yeah, I think Deep Recovery is really a good one. It was made specifically for recovery, and it's very heart centered. And that's the one I did a guided meditation on it. And it's 2 tracks. One is just the music, just the transformational, powerful music. And the other, it has about, 12 minutes of me doing a guided meditation. And then it kind of leaves you with the meditation so you can take it deeper. But people really like that one. And we're always working on new ideas. God, we're so fecund around here. We have really got a lot of stuff in the pipelines. There's just a lot of creativity going on. And but I think that would be a brilliant another track to put out. But you should really check out Deep Recovery.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, and we're talking with Bob Withers, our partner on the website, and he's done a brilliant work with forgiveness meditations, which, the heart forgiveness, it's all in the same area. And we're going to be doing a track with him leading us into these forgiveness prayers. Because if any of you have had things that you've had to forgive, whether forgive yourself or forgive others, sometimes it just takes a lot of work, and a lot of going back and just working with it, prayer and meditation and openness and honesty and courage to face these things. And eventually they begin, sometimes they go poof maybe, but generally they seem to just shrink, and they keep losing their power to cause us to be angry or bitter or suffer. And, then they're just, hey, that happened. But the charge is no longer there.
Yeah. And then David asks, I wanted to add one more for Stephanie here too, which is that's something that I would like to take a look at doing eventually, since heart opening has been such a powerful practice for me. So with everything wonderful coming down the pipeline, maybe at some point eventually I'll get a good guided heart opening meditation track out to the community as well. And we'll see that. In the meantime, I'm really excited about the forgiveness track that we're doing with Bob.
The comment from David, it says, any thoughts or opinion ideas how this technology and other spirit tech democratizes awakening for everyday household laypersons? Well, yeah, that is where, was it Wayne Teasdale, beloved monk who passed away a few years ago? He wrote a book called Being a Monk in the World. And quite frankly, from what I've heard and what I've seen in monasteries, it's not where it's happening anymore. You just don't run into that much spiritual awakening or depth in monasteries, at least in my experience. I'd love to be proved wrong on this. But yeah, it is to be engaged in the world. And the spiritual technology is super important in democratizing awakening. In the book we're writing, and it's kind of a tagline we got from Ken Wilber, but It's waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up. You know, you have to have the spiritual realization that only practice and good luck and grace and good tools and support and the wisdom of those who've walked the road before you can give you, but you also have an ego structure that is healthy enough and elevated enough not to do something weird with it, and that so that it hurts people. You know, if you have to have both the realization of emptiness or spirit or ultimate, but you also have to have an ego that is healthy enough to hold it in a good way, so it doesn't just, you know, twist around it or project its shadows out on other people. So you have to do the growing up. And of course, the cleaning up is the same way. Cleaning up as in getting sober, you know, just physically and eating right and blah, blah, blah. But it also means dealing with the shadow, dealing with all these split off parts of us that come back to haunt us and often cause us to relapse if we're in recovery. And then the showing up is, okay, having done that, I've done the awakening work, which is not just, you know, once the light bulb goes on, then it's, hey, I saw a light bulb 20 years ago. Well, you have to have light for the journey. It has to stabilize, right? And you have to continue to work on yourself and self-reflect and clean up the messes you make internally, externally. As human beings, you know, we make mistakes. But then it's putting it all together, given all this, you know, how shall I live? What is my gift? What am I here to do? And get busy doing that. And because that in itself, when you have the foundation of the other stuff, becomes a transformational yoga, and, you know, the karma yoga, as they say in the Vedic Hindu tradition. It's you're joining with the universe, with yourself, with God, through giving back with courage and love and compassion and wisdom to the world, to life itself. Yeah, working from different angles simultaneously. Absolutely. Well, that's what all we're talking about. Integral cross training, I think, in the book that's emerging right now, we're using that term. You got to hit the essentials from different angles. And as you engage in the practice as a practitioner, your practices begin to deepen and unfold and self-correct and teach you, you know, how you're supposed to be doing from the beginning. Yeah, right, David.
So for the video, it says the fourth way teaches that you cannot know yourself with just awakening. You have to let the world bring your shadow out in many ways.
Yeah, well, the goal world has certainly been faithful to bring my old shadow out in many ways. Thank you, world. And it's true. It's the suffering that encounter that actually puts us on the path most of the time. So
I think
thanks, David.
Yeah. Technology democratizes enlightenment in another really important way too. If we think about the communities of the past, we had everyone together with everything they needed. They brought together a community, it brought together teaching, it brought together space to practice, and it brought together the tools. And that's exactly what technology is allowing us to do by connecting with one another. We don't have to go seek out a particular teacher anymore. We can find all the best teachings anywhere from the comfort of our home, from the comfort of our mobile phone. We can find the communities to practice with, like the iAwake group that we've created here, the Integral Recovery Community, and others. We can get the support that we need, as John was talking about earlier, that is so critical. And we can share our experiences and hone the process in a much quicker way with that much more data to figure out what that is. And then the tools like iAwake Technologies can share with anyone in the world. Anyone can access this stuff, and so it's available to us all now in a way that it never had been before.
That's right.
All those areas, and we have a powerful force in our hands. The question is, will we take advantage of it, and will we use it responsibly? And that is on us to do so. None of this stuff is anything other than our own choice and our own free will, and we cultivate our ability to make those right choices. It starts here, guys. It's in the heart. It's heart-centric practice is so critical to moving forward as a species.
That's right. And if it doesn't have that, it doesn't have the healed heart, the open heart. It's just painful, you know, and it's not going to work. And it's certainly nothing that should be called enlightenment. It's just a trip. So anyway, maybe we should, yeah. And you said, right. There's so many rooms. There's so many places to do meetings now on the internet. We're so connected. the important thing is to keep working on ourselves and become the best version of yourself, because it's going to take a lot of wisdom, compassion, strength, courage to get her done for those who come after us and for those who are here now. So let's do it together, and we'll see you next week. And thank you so much. We love you guys. Appreciate you a bunch.